good morning and welcome back to Spidz YouTube. Today we're going to be going over our CDS Season 2 Week 3 games against LGames Brazil. Hopefully it'll be a good time. I think that both the prep, as always, is going to be interesting, but in this one I think the games are more interesting than the last 2 weeks. I mean, Week 1 was a non-game and Week 2, we sort of just drew the wrong half of the deck. Our prep sort of failed us, but I think this week both the prep and the games are quite interesting. So let's go through it. In case you're unaware, my team as of now, or as of this game, was Gwen, Leona, Draven, Nilla, Kennen, Lucian, Tidwani, Kaisar, Gangplank and the Porra King, and Dizzymondo ORNG, aka LGames Brazil, was at the time of Week 3. Teemo, Hecarim, Na, Kalista, Senna, Nivea, Zed, Darius, Tryndamere, Aurelia. This has now changed. One of these has, and I think Tryndamere has been removed for a different champion. But this was also different from what it was in Week 2. Normally, I would go over what champions they've got and give a whole, description about what I expect. And I normally do it via text. This time, I'm going to be showing you a spreadsheet that I worked on. But before we get onto that, it's just worth noting that before this week, they had Samira and got rid of Samira for Hecarim by doing a trade with FTP Bust. And they also had Volibear, but they traded Volibear away for Zed. So keep in mind that going into this week, they've suddenly picked up Hecarim Zed. Okay. This is the spreadsheet that we're going to be looking over. It is an eyesore, to be certain. But we'll go over the spreadsheet kind of smallly. Eventually, you'll get used to what the spreadsheet looks like and why this ends up deciding what we do for the lineup. Okay. So, what did LGames bring Week 1? Week 1 versus Cephalopod, LGames brought Darius Na Overwhelms, which is just everyone's favorite Overwhelm deck. Kalista, Teemo, Burn. Think like Used Cark Salesman, Doom Beast, these sorts of cards, right? Ballistic Bot. And then Senna, Samira aggro. Think like Skitter or Spider aggro, basically, like Precious Pet sort of. It's basically just Spider's aggro. And they won. They beat Cephalopod because Cephalopod was thinking that they were a full Fredlord lineup and brought like a bunch of anti-control stuff, right? Like, Cosmic Hole and these sorts of things. Or Ari. It was Ari Soraka. And so he beat Cephalopod because he brought aggro and Cephalopod thought he was fighting control and brought anti-control, and anti-control loses to aggro. Week 2 versus Grandpa Roji, LGames completely changed his lineup into triple Freljord control, into Zombie Anivia, FTR plus War Mother's Call, and then FTR the War Mother's Call Artican, right? Glycer Anivia, Aurelia, Tryndamere, Darius, Volibear. He lost that week, but the main thing you should be keeping in mind is like, when everyone looked at this lineup to begin with, everyone discounted it for there are 3 Freljord champs. You can't really do too much with it. There was like 3 Freljord champs, 2 SI champions. What the hell are we going to do? And it turned out to be a really flexible lineup that LGames is definitely willing to innovate with. So going into this, I expected 3 main thrusts, right? Triple control, triple aggro, and Zed Hecarim, because they just traded for Zed Hecarim. So I thought this would end up coming up. So provided that we can beat all 3 thrusts, which is a wide pool to be trying to beat, but if we can beat that pool, we would be in a, as they would say, kind of pogger's position. So that's what we went for. So how to beat LGames. We've got 3 columns that we need to get all good matchups on. Aggro, control, and Zed Hecarim. I thought control was very likely versus me. If you're thinking like, what do I have? I've got aggro slanted mid-range. Control will probably beat that, right? I have enough whales and avalanches and Niveas, and you'll probably end up beating me into something if I'm playing Plunder or Red Gwen, right? That's sort of a decent line, right? Bring 2 Harsh Winds and 2 Ruinations and you'll probably be fine. And then Zed Hecarim, right? He literally just traded for it. It's not necessarily a tell, but it was one of the first trades of the season, outside of the Cephalopod one. So I thought this was pretty likely. So we wanted to be favored into all 3 of these. Particularly this week, I worked with Hash. Typically, I think like Week 1, I primarily worked with Jansport, and Week 2, I primarily worked with Sleepy Bunda. This week, Sleepy Bunda was rather busy, and Hash like directly messaged me and was like, hey, I want to work with you desperately. And I was like, okay, Hash, probably because seasonals had just ended, so he had nothing to do. So keep in mind that a lot of this was worked on with Hash. The first couple of thoughts I had was, what if I just played aggro, right? What if I played something like Gwen Leona or Draven Gwen? And what I realized about Red Gwen is that Red Gwen's probably favored into all of this. You can beat aggro by simply running like 1-to-1 units that trade into them, and then having Gwen that they can't kill and keeps healing. Dancers, that's quite powerful. Draven's pretty good. Into most aggro stuff, especially if you're on Vile Feasts and Quietus and Soul Harvest, you'll be able to beat aggro. You'll be able to beat control because you're on things like Harrowing, and Gwen is not easy to kill, and all these sorts of things. It's not amazing, but it's good enough. And against Zed Hecarim, you Sentry Flock Zed, and you try and pressure them down, and your damage is just about as high as their damage from their ephemerals, except they can't block, and you can block on the turn just before you're about to win. So I felt like all of these matchups would be pretty favored for Red Gwen. All right. Shellfolk was something that is like not good into aggro, not good into Zed Hecarim, but good into control. And since we brought it last week, I thought it's something we should consider, especially since at the time we thought like some level of control was probably relatively likely into me, but it's not good in the other matchups, so it's sort of put on the back burner unless we need it, right? Plunder. Plunder probably does not beat control if their control is specifically like all this Freljord stuff that's running War Mother's Call and can outvalue me. And in theory, Plunder's one of the only decks I've brought both weeks in a row, so I really did not want to bring it a third week in a row and be very easily targeted. So while it is slightly favored into aggro and slightly favored into Zed Hecarim, we really would have preferred to dodge Plunder, right? All right, we're going to ignore the Poryking Leona for a second. Let's talk about Cosmic Call. Cosmic Call was another thing that was really good into control, and if you build it right, it might have been able to beat aggro and beat Zed Hecarim. You're trying to beat Leona. You have to play Leona, and then you have to figure out the second region. So we got a couple of options for second regions. We can go Sejuani for freezes. We can go Kennen for some of the Bandle City or Ionian control tools. And we ended up saying that Kennen was going to be the best region, right? Kennen lets you run things like Drop the Bomb, Wallop, Portal Pioneer, and Aloof Travelers. All of these would be really good into aggro and control and Zed Hecarim, right? The pings let you ping off all of aggro's units and all of the X1s that an ephemeral deck runs, right? Drop the Bomb lets you kill Zed on curve, and it lets you deal with things in aggro. Wallop lets you deal with control for a turn and lets you stun Hecarim on the turn that he's played. Portal Pioneer lets you destroy the Foyer landmark as well as nebulous things in control, right? Whether you're getting rid of Trindamere's Overwhelm for a turn or something, right? Portal Pioneer seem pretty good. And Aloof gets to get rid of Hecarim, gets rid of, if they're on Harrowing in that deck, Harrowing, although I don't think that's really common in that. Let you get rid of like Darius and aggro and let you get rid of the Wincon in control, right? So like the Bandle City region was really good in Cosmic Call, and we'll get into that a little bit later. The rest of it was sort of just okay. Like Leona stuff isn't doing great into all of this thing, but Kennen was quite good, or one of the reasons we wanted Cosmic Call. Went through a couple more King ideas, and we realized that there's a difference between like a Sejuani, like a Freljord King deck, and a Kaisar King deck, where a Kaisar King deck wouldn't have access to things like Brittle Steel or good ways of dealing with the Zed and Hecarim. You could have Quicksand, but Quicksand's a much more expensive option to answer Zed with than Brittle Steel, right? If you're imagining King into Zed Hecarim, you want to answer Zed on 3. That's rather important. And Porobot plus Snacks will answer Zed, and Porobot plus Brittle will answer Zed on 3. Also, a 1-drop plus Poro Snacks plus Brittle will answer a Zed on 3, as well as Sky Splitter. Sky Splitter also answers Zed on 3. Kaisar doesn't really have that. You can exhaust Zed on the turn after, or you can Quicksand Zed, which isn't awful, but those cost a lot more mana compared to Brittle Steel and Sky Splitter, right? But we thought Kaisar would be better into control because you get to run Rite of Negation, right? To beat Harrowing or beat Ruination, while Sejuani versions just wouldn't have an answer to that. So with King, it will be slightly good into aggro because you're running a bunch of 1-drops and you'll be able to block down quick enough, right? Like what does Teemo do against Daring Poro, right? They'll just sort of be aggroed down. But Zed Hecarim in control was definitely a tougher sort of difficulty to be with. We couldn't decide Sejuani or Kaisar for it. All right, then Hash says something and is like, hold on, why don't we just play Riptide Rex? Right, Riptide Rex should beat all of this. Riptide Rex beats aggro, Riptide Rex beats control, and Riptide Rex beats Zed Hecarim, is what he said in his mind. And so we thought, okay, Kennen is already really good. What if we put Kennen with Gangplank? And I know last week I said Kennen and Gangplank don't make sense in a deck together. In this week they did, because it beats aggro, right? You get to run stuff like Drop the Bomb and Parley to deal with the aggro decks. You get to be controlled because you get to play Rex on a high power turn, and they don't really have a good answer for Rex. Like Rex will deal 7 damage or clear out the board. It's a very high tempo play on a turn just before control decks are about to turn the game over. Zed Hecarim, this deck beats because you got to have the Kennen control tools, right? There's a little question here: is this aggro TF Swain or control TF Swain? Are we trying to run things like Mirai Warden to deal a little bit of damage, or are we trying to keep it more laid back and run purely control cards, right? Are we running 2 Wallops or 1 Wallop? This sort of question, right? All right, then there was a short idea of Lucian, Kaisar, Bloodletter, Zozo, Mummy, Flesh Tomoji. Just like Bloodletters seemed really good into their lineup, Bloodletters will let you kill aggro in time. Their control can't really kill Bloodletters, and Zed Hecarim kind of loses to Bloodletters. This was an idea we sort of messed around with, but it wasn't something we stayed with too much explicitly. Should also mention, Mono Bilgewater was not a bad idea. We were thinking that there's probably a world where you do Nilla Gangplank, because Mono Bilgewater seemed okay as a Rex deck on its own, right? Or even having Gangplank Rex and then Nilla Rex, right? Have 2 separate Riptide Rex decks. We don't have to talk about a lot of the rest of the stuff. A lot of this is just copy paste and what have you. The main thing that I want to point out here is one, that what beats Zed Hecarim is just Kennen. Kennen Bandle City beats Zed Hecarim, and if you just find something that makes Kennen Bandle City work with the other regions, you'll be fine, right? So if you think about the lineups, right? Red Gwen, we had triple favored into stuff. Whatever the Kennen deck is, probably Kennen Condensed Rex is triple favored. We just have to find one more deck that's triple favored. And what we were messing around with a little was one, Nilla Sejuani Rex, just another Riptide Rex deck, and Sejuani obviously is another Plunder champion, and Nilla's not that bad. And the other option was Siva Sejuani. We actually did a few games of practicing with Siva Sejuani, trading in like Kaisar and the Poro King for Siva. We didn't end up actually doing it because we didn't end up committing to this line. But I thought trading and playing around with Siva could have been an idea, and maybe I'm just a little biased because I happen to like that champion. So this is the spreadsheet, and at the end of the day, you can see what we ended up picking, which was Draven Gwen, Condensed Rec, and we ended up picking up the Poro King Sejuani. Let's analyze those three decks, right? The main decks was Red Gwen, a Bandle City Kennen deck with GP being the strongest shell, and then the Poro King deck probably is being Sejuani, right? So let's go through LGames' lineups, right? Week 1, they brought Darius Nar Overwhelms, Team Calista Burn, Senna Samira Aggro. Keep in mind that they can't play Senna Samira Aggro anymore because they don't have that region, right? They cannot play Senna Samira Aggro. That's not something that they're able to do. Into this lineup, our deck bans Calista Teemo Burn because sometimes we can't answer Teemo with like the Poro King deck. But to get the Poro King deck through, we can play into Darius Nar Overwhelms, and Kennen GP is sort of okay into Darius Nar Overwhelms with the way that we were playing it, and it was sort of doing okay into other aggro-y stuff. Provided we ban Teemo Calista Burn, we are good into a week 1 lineup, right? And they can't bring Senna Samira aggro, so this deck is going to be worse now. It's not even going to be able to be with a Noxus champion, right? Okay. Week 2 against Grandpa Roji, they brought Calista, Anivia, Aurelia, Tryndamere, Darius Volibear. Now, they can't even bring Darius Volibear anymore because they don't have Volibear. But into this, we just ban the Ruination deck, which is the Calista Anivia. We ban whatever has the SI Freljord region combination, basically, and the Poro King should be able to get through it. Like, Poro King can beat Aurelia, Tryndamere because they don't really have answers to the Poro King. And whatever other deck they bring will be able to beat. Like, whatever third deck is in their control lineup that isn't Shadow Isles, we will be able to beat pretty much, right? Now, they do have 3 SI champions, so in theory, they could do triple Ruination, but there will be one deck that's relatively weak, because it'd have to be like a Noxus region stuff or a Bandle City region stuff, and that's a little bit weaker into dealing with Poro King. All right, lineup 3. Anything with Zed Hecarim, like their third possible lineup is anything with Zed Hecarim, we should be able to 2-0 Zed Hecarim. Poro King should be able to 2-0 it because we get to Brittle Steel the Zed and do Sky Splitter and all these sorts of things and all that. And Red Gwen beats it, and Kennen GP beats it. So what is like the worst possible lineup they could bring? Like, if we were to think in our head, the worst thing that they could do would be Teemo Slowburn. Think like Teemo Senna with Ballistic Butt and these sorts of things, and they sort of win on turn 8 and 9 by not really developing units. They just sort of get their engines going and win. Or even like a Teemo Sejuani-esque deck, like a Teemo Freljord, protect the Puffcat Peddler and win sort of deck. That would be pretty bad. Zombie Anivia would be pretty bad, and some crazy deck that we just cannot conceptualize. Or maybe Darius Nar, just because it's the strongest shell that they've got, right? That would be the worst possible lineup, because we can't really beat SI Freljord with the Poro King. We can't really beat Teemo Slow Burn with the Poro King without like a really good, like insane hand. And Red Gwen doesn't do great into these decks, and Kennen GP doesn't do great into these decks. So this was the worst possible lineup. But in theory, they're going to bring one of the other ones, right? There's definitely no possible world where they bring anything else outside of these, right? This is called foreshadowing. So let's go over our decks pretty quickly. This is our Red Gwen. You won't be able to see the 2 Harrowings, but there are 2 Harrowings in the corner. And this is slightly different from last week. We're on 2 Vile Feast and only 1 Flock, and we changed some of the aggro cards around to be Saboteur instead of Rearguard, and we had a Draven's Biggest Fan. This is because we really wanted Vile Feast to answer some of the ephemeral threats and then block the ephemeral threats, as well as Flock doesn't really hit anything outside of specifically Sentry Flocking Zed. And we just didn't need to specifically Sentry Flock Zed, right? Hate Spike does a good enough job. Pirouette plus Vile Feast does a good enough job. Just aggroing them down does a good enough job. So this deck has moved around slightly, but it's basically the same list as Red Gwen. It's just Red Gwen, everyone. I'm a big fan of this deck. I don't need to continue belaboring this point. Next was Kennen Gangplank, which was a really, really fun time to build. We had 2 Condensed and 2 Rex at the end. A Portal Pioneer went so hard, right? Dealing with the landmark or being able to get rid of keywords or healing or whatever. It was just a really powerful card. You got Concho and Mirai Warden and all these sorts of things. I've Nakikibaras and you know, it's just got all the pings that you want. Bandle Tailstones was pretty nice, but end of the day, it's both like an aggro deck as well as a Riptide Rex condensed deck. I will say condensing Zap Sprayfin is not too bad, right? Being able to draw and refill your mana and have like a pretty sizable unit is not that bad. I condensed Zap Sprayfin a lot during scrims. And then finally, here's the Poro King Sejuani deck. You'll notice a few interesting tech cards. We had the 2 Brittle Steel I was mentioning for trying to beat Zed, as well as 3 Sky Splitter. We had an Ice Shard specifically for the Ephemerals matchup, right? I'm imagining where there's a board, or Hash was like a big card, or a big fan of Ice Shard in this. Some board with like 2 Phantom Butlers and a bunch of like Shark Chariots that haven't been buffed by the 2/3 Soul Lady, right? Only been buffed by maybe Glenkeeper. Doing Ice Shard on that would be like a blowout, right? It basically counters their whole attack for 3 mana. Everything else is pretty stock standard. We're on probably less of a breadth of Poros than other Poro King decks that you might have seen, but we do have Ingvar who gets to manifest a Poro, and the Poro sled is sort of nice. 3 patched Poro bot was really, really important. We really needed that stat line, and I'm not that big on Affectionate Poro, so I made that go down to a 2 because we had to cut something. That's what my lineup is, and so now I'm going to show you their lineup. I'm going to show it to you really quickly. Their first lineup was Callista Na. Their second lineup was Teemo Senna, and their third lineup was Zed Hecarim. Now you're going to notice that a lot of these cards are the same, and that is because they're on triple Wraithcaller Allegiance. Now I think this is based. I'm really glad that they did this because I did this during CDS last season against Puffball Panda. I did 2 lineups like this and then like a Bandle Tree something, right, to beat Starspring. And they've done this against me. And I think this is a cool idea. I get what they were going for. I think there would be third decks that this beats quite easily. In fact, this is not an easy matchup, right? Let's go back through our decks for a second. This deck sort of does okay. It's not great because their Harrowing might be better than our Harrowing, right? But our deck pressures enough, right? Red Gwen is probably the best matchup, and this is what they end up banning. We have got very few fearsome blockers. We've got 3 Jagged Butcher, but keep in mind that sometimes you want to play Jagged Butcher as a 2/2 and always setting it up as a 3/3 against a deck that's trying to prevent you from doing that because it creates a fearsome block. It's definitely difficult to do, right? The only other fearsome blockers are your 1 Piltover Castaway, and then you're talking about Gangplank and Riptide Rex, which are 5 mana. So we don't really have that many fearsome blockers. And we only have 2 Drop the Bomb. If we had 3, we would have killed, like, you know, Mistwraith and Arachnoid Horror a little bit easier. But we've only got 2, right? And we have to like double up on our Pokey Sticks and Parleys and all that and our Bandle Tailstones. It's not easy. And this deck, if you don't draw like 2 copies of Poro Snacks, you don't have any fearsome blockers, right? Patched Poro Bot, maybe. Poro Sled, I guess. But like you need to draw more than 1 copy of Poro Snacks or else you're dead. If you draw 0 copies, you're never winning, right? And good thing we draw multiple copies of Poro Snacks, right? Anyway. These were their decks. If you're curious about why there's an Acorn and Tusk Speaker but no 4th card in this, it's because to decide on a Bandle City region, you do need to add 1 more card because the game doesn't know if it's Freljord Na or Bandle City Na for like, you know, invoke pools or whatever, right? Or manifest pools. So you need to add 1 card, so that's why there's an Acorn and a Tusk Speaker instead of the 3rd Fading Memories. I do want to critique this list a little bit. The fact that there's no Mark of the Isles made it really easy to block into, right? Like, they can't ever threaten something. Like, if I have a 3/4 blocking a 3/2, fearsome, that 3/4 is always blocking 2 things because they can't ever Vile Feast it or Mark of the Isles to kill it, right? So I really like to see Mark of the Isles, especially as defense against stuff like Drop the Bomb and Pokey Stick, right? It's crazy that Mark of the Isles is not in this deck. Tufted Webspin is really cute. I really like it. I think it's a cool addition. I will say I don't like the inclusion of no Boisterous Host. Boisterous Host seems really important as a 1-drop. But at the end of the day, right, this deck's gonna be trying to do its same thing every single game. It's just trying to set up these fearsome attackers. I did want to use this to talk about like some theory about this sort of lineup because I did this last time in CDS1, but I want to go over it again. How should you decide your champions for this, right? Why Callista Na and Teemo Senna and Zed Hecarim and not putting Callista Teemo, for example, or not doing Hecarim Na, right? What is the logic for this? And I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I thought it'd be interesting. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is that if you're doing a triple Mistwraith lineup, you need to rank your Shadow Isles champions 1 through 3, which is the best one, which is the worst one, right? I think Callista's by far the best Shadow Isles champion that he's got in this instance. 1, it's got Fearsome, which is extremely important for the win cons you're trying to go for, and you can also play it on a relatively early turn and apply pressure. 2 is Hecarim. I think it shouldn't be ignored that that guy has Overwhelm and it can be buffed with your Hallowed units. He's not on the Boisterous Host, but he still has Phantom Butler. And I think 3rd is Senna because it's a 5-mana 4/4 and the Darkness is not that important. Darkness is not it's not irrelevant. You can Darkness a Fearsome Blocker and it'll probably get some damage in, but you'd rather have any of your other champions, right? So after you've ranked your champions as power, you should rank all of your other champions in power. So I think Gnar is the strongest champion here that isn't part of these things. I think Gnar being able to create a Pokey Stick and get rid of fearsome blockers, as well as become an overwhelm threat, as well as draw you cards, is quite valuable. I think Zed's the second best one. It applies a lot of pressure. It forces them to block on occasion. It doesn't force them to block fearsome wise, but none of your other champions do that anyway. So it's fine. It's all right. I would say that Darius and Teemo are about tied 3rd for strength. Like, you don't want to do a Nivea or Tryndamere. The Freljord region doesn't give you anything in these champions besides a Nivea's Burn or Tryndamere's 8-mana Overwhelm. It's just not what you want, right? Compared to what you can get out of Darius and Teemo. And Aurelia is much the same, right? It's like Zed, except if Zed didn't attack twice, they only attacked once. Now, to try and make my life the hardest, you should make it so that there is no easy ban, and therefore, like, the way you should construct this is that your champions, like your best SI champion goes with your less good non-SI champion, and your worst SI champion gets saved by your best non-SI champion, right? The way I'm praising this is like first place SI should go with third place non-SI, second place SI should go with second place non-SI, and third place SI should go with first place non-SI, right? Your aim is to sort of have all of these equal 4, right? If you have one equaling 3 and another one equaling 5, I'm just going to ban what is 3 because it's the best thing that you're doing, right? And so in my mind, the way these decks should have been constructed was Kalista, Darius, or Teemo, Hecarim, Zed, and then Gnar, Senna. And what ended up, I should mention, for some people, Gnar might not be 1. You might have turned your head and said Gnar is not 1, Zed is 1. And I don't think that's a bad argument, especially because Gnar costs 4 mana and so does Mistwraith. So if it's your attack token, you sort of are stuck between which one you want to develop because they both want to be attacking on turn 4. So I can make an argument that Zed might be worth 1 as opposed to 2. But I really don't think that Gnar is worse than Teemo or Darius. I think Gnar is really, really good. What LGames ended up bringing, though, was Gnar, Kalista, Hecarim, Zed, and Senna, Teemo, which was 1+1, 2+2, and 3+3, which meant I could just ban both of the 2 best champions, which was Kalista and Gnar, and feel really happy. And I'm going to be honest, I think that's kind of one of the things that causes the outcome of this game, is the champion direction, right? One of the wins that I do end up getting, I think, is because of the way the champions were split. I finally have this slide just to talk about the lineup again. At the end of the day, I talked about 6 of the cards in the deck. Mainly, it's this Mistwraith pile, and that's what we're trying to beat. I was very nervous going into this, but let's go over the games now. By the way, before we get into the games, I should say, if I come across as really tired, it's because I am. I got no sleep last night, so if I'm a little bit more rambly and drawly, that's why. Okay, they banned Red Gwen. Give me the thing. They banned Red Gwen, I banned Kalista, Gnar, and we get into our first game, and I think it's a good time. So, Poro King, I think, is the hardest deck to get through these. I think this, because it's able to kill things like the Mistwraiths with Drop the Bomb and eventually gets to Rex, I thought this would have a much easier time, and this would have a difficult time, unless you draw the right cards, like two snacks. I was really, really scared going to this. I thought I was going to get 2-0'd. Because I think all of these matchups are good for them and bad for me. And I think they were really smart picking their lineup. I was extremely nervous going into this game. So, Poro King versus, I mean, I don't have to call it Zed Hecarim. It's basically Poro King versus Ephemerals. Just want to see how the mulligan goes. I'm not talking through this. I'm just, I've just got music on. Okay, this is how I mulligan. I want to explain the theory. One, I literally think you're not allowed to kick Poro Snacks in a Poro King deck. I think that the fact that I need to create like 3 X's or 3 3s because they're Poros is so like critically important that this matchup goes from like extremely difficult to win to extremely amazing to win just by keeping the Poro Snacks. I thought Affectionate Poro would be a really cute keep because being able to keep Poro Snacks plus Affectionate Poro means that you will have a 2/4 Challenger at some point. Sorry. A 2/2 Challenger, which allows you to kill Zed and allows you to kill Mistwraiths since, like, it's not going to be 3/2, so it can't actually block them themselves, but it would be able to block eventually. Sorry, I'm really tired. My words aren't working properly. End of the day, what I want to do is be able to deal with their Mistwraiths and then set up a large enough board that allows me to win. This allows me to dampen pressure from a large Mistwraith despite not having 3 strength until I get to the point where I will have 3 strength Poros, such as from the Poro King or such as from a Second Next or such from a Borealis, right? So Affectionate Poro seemed like a safe pick. You know, if we go back to what I was talking about yesterday with or 2 days ago with the Mantra Theory, it's a relatively safe keep, but it's, and maybe you need to justify, no, I need to go for like high EV picks. That might have been better, but no, I do like keeping Affectionate Poro. Last thing is Sky Splitter. Sky Splitter is like a one-time use Poro Snacks, but it lets you keep your unit alive. And that doesn't seem great, but I think it's important as early defense against something like if they have, you know, they attack token on 4. If they've got 3 fearsome attackers, I would really like to block at least one of them, because one fearsome attacker on 1 turn does 3 damage, on 2 turns they do 6, right? And this could prevent me from taking 6 or 9 damage just because I have Sky Splitter instead of a Poro that doesn't actually block, right? So that's why I kept this mulligan. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to find all the cards that let me beat fearsomes until I get to a point where all of my units beat fearsomes because all of them have 3 strength. You could argue that I'm supposed to mulligan heavier to try and find just extra copies of Poro Snacks, and especially since there's more Poros in the deck, I don't need to keep a Poro, but if I'm going to keep any Poro, I thought Affectionate Poro is the best one to keep. So that is why I did it this way. Let's go through the game. We play Affectionate Poro. We draw Poro Sled and Ice Break. Ice Break. I don't know the name of the card. Ice Break. Ice Shard. This is one of the few units that actually blocks fearsomes naturally, but it costs 5 mana, so it's not going to come down anytime soon. And while this looks all right, and it looked really good into specifically ephemerals, the only X1s they've got are Phantom Butler and Stygian Onlooker. Everything else is an X2 or an X3, so this was okay, but not great. And keep in mind, before I play Porous next, this guy still only got 1 health. They pass on round 1 because their deck doesn't run any 1-drops except Stygian Onlooker, which they want to play as a fearsome. But they play Phantom Butler, they go in. I have an option of Pouty Poro or Poro Stories. I pick Pouty Poro because at the end of the day, right, if I want to play 2 Poros, I'm going to be spending 4 mana on it anyway, so may as well just do Pouty Poro and keep my mana around. I do Pouty Poro, they play a Mistwraith. I decide that next turn, I want to be able... I don't want to waste mana, right? And I'm going to be playing Poro Snacks by next turn anyway, so I may as well just play it this turn and have 5 mana to play with next turn, as opposed to having the 7, but no Poro Snacks played, right? So I play Poro Snacks here. I decide not to attack with this unit. I know it's here now. I pull it back. If they block with this, not only does it turn off my Ice Shard for a future turn, it also adds +1 damage to all of their fearsomes. This, attacking with this and then blocking would be less damage now, but in theory, I can save a lot more damage by doing this on an ideal turn and actually keeping this unit around for when it can do stuff better later on. Like, I don't know, becoming 3 strength and treating into stuff on its own. So I decide not to do this attack. And I decide also not to do this attack. I could have, but I felt as if I wanted to keep this unit around to be Sky Splitted next turn defensively, was my thinking. That way it stays around and I can pull an even better unit on a future turn, was my thinking. We draw another Sky Splitter, which is quite nice. It means we can block 2 fearsomes, and so when they attack, that's exactly what I do. I know this does less damage than this at the moment, but this is only 4 damage on 1 turn, right? While this is 3 damage every single possible turn in the future, but can become 4 or 5 or 6, right? And look, there might have been an argument to sacrifice this into this, but I like keeping this unit around so that it can trade into things in future. I think this block is correct. I really like taking this damage because this unit can always be blocked in the future. They're not on Soul Cleave, so we don't have to worry about that. They're on Fading Memories, but unless they draw it, they can always Fading Memories on the block anyway, if we were to kill it with a Sky Splitter. So I really like doing it this way. This can be chumped later. This cannot unless I draw a Poro Snacks. And if I draw a Poro Snacks, I'm going to be feeling really happy about my position. So I do the double Sky Splitter to prevent 6 damage, and we move on to the next turn. I get to play Sled here. Sled is a 6/6, and I get to attack in... No. Right. I don't attack in with Sled. I thought, like most people, I think, probably think that they should attack in with Sled. This 2/2 gets blocked down by this, but if Sled trades into this unit, I'm really sad. Not only do they get the Hollowed proc, which is not great for me, it means that Sled kills 2 fearsomes, and that's all Sled ever does, right? If Sled blocks, Sled still gets to kill 2 fearsomes and attack with something else without sacrificing himself into this, and in theory, if we end up sky splitting next turn, Sled can do even more for me, right? The fact that like I don't want to trade into this unit. This unit is sort of going to get more value if it kills off one of my units or damages Poro Sled. So why ever let it get that value, right? Because I need to squeeze as much value out of this hand that I can get because I don't have Poro Snacks or Poro King just yet. So I need to get as much value out of my cards, and that involves me not attacking into this and letting it take damage for insufficient reason. They end up playing a third Phantom Butler, and I feel fantastic with this Ice Shard. I'm really, really happy with it. They play Fading Memories. I play Poro Herder. I think this block is pretty self-sufficient and understanding. You know, I want to get this trade to go and feel happy about it. I'm willing to chump block, and I'd rather keep this unit around because it can challenge things while this unit cannot, and I don't really care about possible Overwhelm or Fearsome or... sorry, Overwhelm or Regen or Tough. And this block is a positive block for me, and actually, they don't have any units, which means I will get to attack for free, right? They can't protect me. They can't kill this. And even if they develop something like a 2-mana Fearsome, I can pull it to the side. So this attack has turned into something that's really great for me. Like, this has turned into a fantastic position and what I thought would be unwinnable because I didn't have 3 strength Poros. We develop a little bit. They end up playing Stygian just to get pulled to the side. We do this attack. I think about it for a little bit whether I want to do Sky Splitter, but I realize that what Sky Splitter currently says is create a Fearsome blocker, and Sky Splitting this to protect this unit does not create a Fearsome blocker, so I should not do it. We attack in. I think a lot about this turn, but we decide to go for it. They play Zed, which is fine. No Fearsome attacking. I'm happy. They play a couple more Fearsomes. Now I'm less happy, especially since with Hollowed, these are threatening lethal, so I will be losing this or this. But, you know, we continue going around. And then they play Hecarim, and keep in mind they've got 3 Hollowed procs, so Hecarim actually has 8 strength. And so here, the game is almost face up, right? There are worlds where I can invent lethal next turn, and I just need to spend my time thinking about it and finding it. I develop a unit, they attack. Let's talk about this action, because I spend a long time thinking on this action, and it is an action that takes a while to think about, and I really wish I had my in-game commentary for it. Unfortunately, I do not. So, the ideal scenario is that we threaten lethal next turn. Remember, they're not on Vile Feast, they're not on Vengeance, they're not on any interaction piece that could prevent us from getting lethal. They're not on Shadow Isles Tellstones, so they can't interact with us. The only spell that I think you should keep in mind is Zed Shadow Shift. That's the only one that could possibly influence this combat. So, where are we taking damage from? Let's ignore these, because they're not dealing overwhelm damage. We can always jump them, right? And I guess a better way of putting it is that they're at 5 health. So we need to find, like, all we need for a lethal is to have impact hit and 2 2/2s to hit, right? Now, they're going to have minimum these blockers. So we need to make sure that we have more 2/2s hitting than we need 2 more 2/2s hitting than they have blockers. Now, if the Poro Sled is kept alive, we only need to worry about having 1 extra 2/2, right? So at the end of this combat, all we want to do, and remember, this could be a unit, so just keep that in mind. That could be a unit that could block. All we want is Poro Sled, 1 2/2, and then, like, equal in units. How can we influence combat to make this occur? The first thing that we can do is we can use Brittle Steel in order to remove a unit and keep one of ours around, right? That's the first thing that you can realize. And so what I end up doing is brittling Mistwraith and blocking with the Poro Sled, right? That way I'm protecting my unit, I'm killing this unit, and Poro Sled's not going to die because he's important, or is very good for one of my possible avenues for lethal, right? The next thing I'm thinking is that using Ice Shard or using Sky Splitter protects one of my units from trading into one of these things, right? Finally, I can develop 2 units after this combat, so I will always have the extra 2-unit advantage to what they're doing. That's one way of viewing it. Now, it's really hard to conceptualize all of this, especially since this is dealing 6 damage, right? Like, we need to make sure that post Hecarim, we're only taking 3 damage, right? This threatens lethal, which means inherently both of these spells, or blocking with this, are going to have to be used to prevent ourselves from dying. Alternatively, you are allowed to do, like, Sky Splitter on this guy and block here and block slightly more than doing Sky Splitter on something else. Because Sky Splitter typically will save you 3 health from blocking this, but in theory it could save you 4 health from blocking this unit by putting it on this, but doing it this way allows us to trade into this unit, removing it from the board, right? I spend a long time thinking about this. A long time. This is what I end up deciding on. I decide that out of all of the Poros, this one's the most important to keep alive, just in case I top deck a Poros next, but it does not matter, right? End of combat, they are going to have 2 units around, plus a possible 3rd unit. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th from this, as well as the impact. We only need to be 2 more than them, so we're going to be plus 3 on their units. And in theory, if this is the 3rd, then we're going to be plus 2. The only other card that they could have that influences this is Zed's Shadow Shift. Now, Zed's Shadow Shift does some really awkward things. We have to block all of this, because if I don't block, say, this unit, and they Zed Shadow Shift this would have 3 strength and we'd be dying, right? But the thing is, if they've got Zed Shadow Shift, they're allowed to do Zed Shadow Shift on this and kill the Poro Sled. And what that ends up meaning is that not only do they get to replay this unit, it also means that they're going to have, 3 units. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, and we're not going to be able to win because we need to go extra wide. We need to top deck maybe Sejuani in order to get a lethal chance, pull the Zed. So that would be really unfortunate. The line that I've taken right now loses to Zed Shadow Shift if they did it this way. I guess I should mention, if they top deck Risen Mist, they also could block an extra unit, right? But I think that I have to accept that I'm losing to Zed Shadow Shift here, because as far as I can tell, I cannot beat Zed Shadow Shift. At least not that I'm aware. Because even if I move this here, and just silence and just frostbite but don't freeze this, right? My understanding, if I do it that way, and this is going to require a little bit of math, is that I'm guaranteedly taking 3 damage because this will be hitting the Nexus. I will be blocking, I'll be taking 2 damage from this unit, right? Which means that I do need to block this, this, and this, because Zed Shadow Shift will win, right? I need to, this will be dealing the last bit of damage. Well, hold on. I'm taking 5, right? Because I'm protecting myself 6 from this, and I'm taking the 3 because I don't have any other ways of dealing with this, and I'm still frostbiting this unit. I'd be at 4 Nexus health, which means, in theory, I can take one of these attackers, right? Which means, in theory, so I'm losing this unit, I'm keeping this unit around. Then I'm losing 2 more units, right? So I'm keeping this, 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 and this. So I will be guaranteedly 6 wide plus impact, and they will be guaranteedly 3 wide, maybe 4 wide, right? Which means that I am still the +2 that I need to be, right? Impact +2 is lethal. But, so I guess that's the line, right? It's just as likely to win. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. So I did misplay in the end. If this is very complicated, but I think this is really interesting. What I've currently done is made it so that a Shadow Shift here prevents me from winning the game unless I top deck a certain type of thing, right? And they should do the Shadow Shift here in order to prevent themselves from losing. If I move this unit here and just don't block with this, despite... Oh, hold on. No, because I'm not killing this unit either, right? So both of these units are staying alive. Hold on. Let's go back. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is Zed Shadow Shift. Right? I'm not blocking with this, so I get to keep 1. This guy dies. I get to keep 2. I need to block with 2 of these, but I get to keep 3, 4, 5. I get to go 6 wide, but they have got 4 units, possibly a 5th. Yeah, okay, so I would be going 2 wide, right? And still winning, provided that they don't draw Risen Mist, if this is not a 2 or less mana unit, right? If this costs more than 2 mana, and it's and it can be Z Shadow Shift, right? It's allowed to be Z Shadow Shift. I will win the game, and they don't draw this. The line that I have taken says that this can be any unit, but it can't be Z Shadow Shift. And so I guess then the math becomes, right? Because we're still losing to top decks. Oh no, we don't lose to Risen Mist with my line, as far as I'm aware. Sorry, there's so much to keep track of. Because with my line, they've got 1, 2, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm +3. So even Risen Mist is not enough. Unless this is a 2-drop in Risen Mist. I should just stop. I should just ignore Risen Mist. But I'm pretty sure I beat Risen Mist if this is expensive. And so I'm beating any unit. Or expensive unit plus Risen. Right? But I'm not beating Zed's Shadow Shift, right? While with the other line, where we don't block this way and we block this here, right? With that line, we are beating Zed. We are beating Zed Shadow Shift, but we're not beating Risen in any way, shape, and form, is my understanding. Yeah, because they've got 4 units and we'd only have 6. We're never beating Risen. And we're also not beating a 2-drop. So, like, the fact, I'm pretty sure the line that I took is correct, because these are the 2 things it's losing to. A cheap unit plus Risen, or Zed. And they didn't play Zed on an earlier turn, and Zed's sort of a unit you do want to play on an earlier turn. But it could be, it's interesting. I think the line that I took is right, but there's lots of math to do here, and you don't have that much time in game to think about it. That was a long tangent. How long has this been going? Holy hell. Okay. Anyway, we do this trade, we win the game. Yeah. And they don't have Risen Mist. I guess there's technically the world where they have double Risen Mist, but Risen Mist is an expensive unit in this instance, right? You may as well just consider that the same thing. Okay, next game. Cannon GP versus the same deck. I don't know. Let me look at the mulligan for a second. Okay, full mulligan. I don't hate it. Like this is too early. This is too early. Wallop is nice, but we need early units like a Jagged Butcher, and this is too early, right? What are we looking for in this matchup? I think we're looking for Drop the Bomb to be able to kill Mistwraith. I think we're looking for 3/3 Jagged Butcher. I think we're looking for Piltover Castaway. I also think we're looking for Concho. Concho has some really good hits, such as Lightning Rush, such as Cloud Stance, and such as Wallop, and such as Drop the Bomb. So I think those are the cards that we want. What we end up drawing is 2 Butchers, and 2 Butchers is a really, really interesting spot to be in. You can't proc both of them on turn 2 defense with a Pokey Stick because that costs 4 mana. But what you can do is you can play a Butcher on 1, and their only blocker is Stygian Onlooker, which means Butcher can attack in, proc Plunder, and then let you set up for the second Butcher. It also sets up for a bit of an aggro play, but it means you're losing one of your few fearsome blockers in Jagged Butcher because you're playing it on turn 1. Lots of interesting stuff. This is also blocking, let me get rid of all the drawings. This is also blocking fearsome via Heroic Refrain, right? Add it to, you know, a cannon or whatever, and it blocks fearsome. An Electro Harpoon should not be ignored as a way of killing Mistwraith, right? Pokey Stick's a very nice card for letting you draw cards and proc Plunder, so this is a much better hand. I end up deciding to do the Butcher on 1 to try and set up the Butcher on 2 as well as be a little bit aggressive, but they end up playing the Stygian on 1, which is a really, it's fascinating, the trades of the 1/1. We're basically both losing a really ideal 1-drop to sort of fuck over the other person's ideal 1-drop, right? They want to be using this as a 4/1 fearsome that I can't block unless I Pokey Stick it, right? And the fact that I can Pokey Stick it means it's not going to be great as a 4/1 fearsome, although if you have multiple of these, and spoiler alert, they have a fair few feeding icons in this guy, feeding memories in this guy, then it's not great, because unless they have multiple, I would just do it. But since they have multiple, then every single subsequent one is a better way of interacting with the fact that I've only got a certain amount of pings in a given hand state. But they do this just so that I can't proc Plunder efficiently, and I'm not on Make It Rain. Make It Rain was the card that we cut because we didn't think it was as important as other forms of interaction like Pytos. End up doing this block because I don't want to take 2 damage unnecessarily, and this 2/2 is never doing more than blocking a 2/1 at this point. Yeah. But now we get to turn 3, and we've got this guy, and I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. One option is to play this card, right? What this card lets me do is I get rid of saying Unnecessarily, kill this unit, kill this, play this, and I feel pretty fine, right? I have a fearsome blocker that I've developed, and I've procced Plunder on an off turn, right? Which means I'm getting more value. But at the time, I sort of thought that this would be one way I'd be using Heroic Refrain like quite... I was expecting myself to use Heroic Refrain quite liberally, right? I'd be getting another draw that would be something like a cannon, and I'd buff this unit to be an extra strength, and I'd be able to block 2 fearsomes, right? I think that's sort of short-sighted. I think, having never done this matchup, because Decklock is about 15 minutes before the game, I thought that I was going to get a lot more value out of Unnecessarily than I did. I just didn't have the time to play it in the end. So I do wish that I went for the 3-mana Electro Harpoon, get rid of this, deal some damage, be able to proc this, and get rid of this. I think that's a much better line than what I end up doing, because I'm pretty sure what I end up doing is sticking the Nexus to try and proc the Butcher without using up too many resources. But I think in Reality Land, I wish I had done the Electro Harpoon. We do this sort of trade. Goes through, I draw Zap's Briefin off the top, and I thought this was a really good draw. It allows me to possibly find Drop the Bomb or Wallop, as well as go in for free damage without sacrificing my 3/3, letting me set up a Gangplank level in future, right? And also, like, the fact that we get to condense this might be quite nice later on. They end up playing a bunch of fearsomes. I decide from this board state, where this is a Mistwraith, that the fact that Pytos can't kill a 2-health unit on its own without accessing the Perilous Pastry means I should really do it this turn to prevent myself from taking 3 damage. I don't hate this play, but it does mean that I can't do Heroic Refrain plus like a ping next turn, right? I can't afford Heroic Refrain plus enough pings in order to deal with their stuff, and I felt like I don't have to do Pytos, considering I can still do Heroic and double ping if I just don't spend my spell mana now. So I do think this was a misplay, doing the Pytos onto this unit. I think saving Heroic Refrain to be able to block 2 things, or even just 1 thing, would have been better off. Alternatively, I still think that in this instance, I should have done Electro Harpoon. Kill this, kill this. I can use this and this to deal with something like this unit or this unit, and I can use this to block this, right? So again, I'm very scared of wasting these draw cards, because in my hand I don't have Gangplank and I don't have Rex, and I felt like I would need these, so I felt like I didn't want to lose my few access to draw. But I should have done it. I think it's a better line than what I end up doing. I could have even gotten rid of Condense for all I care, right? Anyway, I do the double Pytos. I draw Rex, which is nice, but then I'm in this position, right, where they've developed a unit that I also want to block with like this or this, but it's not great for me either way. And it's just the sort of situation where I really wish I had killed this off for cheaper and still had 2 pings in order to deal with this. Then this can block into this, and if I really want this can block into this and set up for the Perilous Pastry on the other half, and then I can do Perilous Pastry plus these over the next couple of turns and sort of deal with their board efficiently. Instead, what we've got is a situation where, this trades into this, and this either blocks this, or we Heroic Refrain to deal with things. It wasn't great. And the fact that, like, Electro Harpoon's gotten a lot worse now that we don't have 2 pings. All of a sudden, we're not able to actually kill a second thing post-Heroic Refrain. Sorry, post-Electro Harpoon. So, I don't know. I wish we'd done Electro Harpoon. Instead, we end up doing Heroic Refrain this turn, blocking the 2 fearsome units, trying to trade into their board, realizing that if we just draw a unit, we'll be able to block this anyway. And we totally draw a unit, so we'll be fine. I mean, we do have a unit in hand. We've got Unnecessarily. We play Unnecessarily, it lets us draw into a couple of things. I play Controller just to try and find things like, Cloud Dance or whatever it's called. And we end up having an interesting decision between Warning Shot and Tricksy Tentacles. And I think this is not, or Tidal Invocation. And this is not an easy decision. So I want to justify all of these cards to you. The first is Tidal Invocation. Tidal Invocation plus Pokestick deals with 3 damage. It's really nice. Now, not necessarily on this board, because we already have a fearsome blocker and we already have a blocker that can deal with this. Like, Hecarim's a massive fucking threat. But it's nice, right? It's nice that it gets to kill units that I can't otherwise kill. Warning Shot. I've got Rex, man. I want to do Rex, and then I want to also make it such that I am able to condense. So, like, I'm currently planning out turn 8, right? What I'm realizing is that on turn 8, what I want to do is I want to Pokestick the Nexus. I want to play Rex, deal with their board so that they're forced to develop next turn, Then I can do Warning Shot, Condense, Rex all in one action and then kill their board a second time, right? And if I use Pokey Stick for the second Rex, that takes 2 actions when they have the attack token. So they will see that coming and are able to win. So Warning Shots lets us set up a condensed Rex on turn 9 in one action. Which is sort of important, but it also means that I'm forcing myself to play Pokey Stick on turn 8, which means I have to bank 2 mana going into turn 8, which means I'm spending less mana defensively on my turn 7. I'm limited to 5 mana defensively on turn 7 because I need to bank 2 mana for turn 8 because Controller just is using up all my mana. Finally, Trixie. Trixie might seem like a bit of a throwaway option, but typically how Harrowing decks work is that they're going to be left with 1 or 2 cards in hand, and then if you Trixie the Harrowing just before they do it, you'll feel very happy. And I could also Harrowing things like a Hecarim, right? Especially in this board state where Hecarim currently costs 2 mana. I don't think Trixie's a bad option, but I do think it is slightly worse than these two. Anyway, I spent a long time thinking about this, and I think I picked Tidal Invocation. My thinking was that second Rex was a little bit too cute to be gunning for right now, and I really just needed 1 Rex to be good enough for me at the moment. And being able to deal with this unit with a Tidal Invocation seemed really important. End up drawing Wallop, which changes things a little. We're able to wallop this guy, which is quite nice. And then I'm pretty sure we put Drop the Bomb on the stack, right? Because it's 2 mana. They developed instead of open attacking, so Drop the Bomb is finally relevant. It means that the Pokey Stick and Tidal Invocation don't end up working together, but that's okay. And as I said, we need to spend 5 mana this turn because we need to bank 2 mana to be able to do the Pokey Stick to set up the Rex, right? Because we did not take Warning Shot. If we had taken Warning Shot, a better play would be Wallop on this and then Tidal Invocation on this. But keep in mind, we can't have Tidal Invocation and Warning Shot because they came from the same pool, right? So anyway, we do drop the bomb in this, try and deal with their board. They end up playing Frenzied Skitterer, which hurts a lot because it means we can't block Fearsome. We end up blocking with our 2 smaller units, down to 3 health. We do top deck the Warning Shot, which means we can do Condense Rex on turn 9. And look, there's a world in which you're allowed to play this, but we actually don't have an answer for Hecarim right now that isn't Riptide Rex. There's nothing in our deck that kills Hecarim outside of like, what? I would not keep us into drop the bomb into like 2 Pytosses that allows us to kill this guy. Then we also need to find ways of dealing with these units. It's just not happening. Right? What we need is for Rex to put 3 hits here, 1 hit here, 1 hit here. Ideally 1 hit here, but honestly, it's not a big deal. As long as it hits these 2 units and this unit, we're good. Now keep in mind, we have to give them an action in order to do this if we want to set up the second Condense. Now, I think setting up the second Condense is not irrelevant. Keep in mind that they've got 4 cards in hand. These 4 cards are either going to be units, like, you know, with Fearsome, or Hecarim, or Harrowing. Let's say 1 or even 2 of them are spells, right? Well, but probably just 1, right? Something like, I don't know, Stalking Shadows. Even Stalking Shadows is fine. Something like Fading Memories. Even Fading Memories is fine. That's still a unit. That means this turn after Rex or next turn before they attack, they're going to be developing the board again, and we're going to have an answer for that board as well. So we are going to need to use second Rex. Second Rex will be necessary for us to use. Now, there are 2 ways of viewing this, right? One is via saying that we should use 2 actions now, right? Pokey Stick plus Rex, so that next time when they do Harrowing, which is a 1 action card, I can do Warning Shot, Condense Rex, and kill that instance, right? Alternatively, you're allowed to say that if they develop a unit now, I might not kill Hecarim. And I need to kill Hecarim because I don't have Wallop in my deck anymore. And Hecarim will kill me unless I block with this, but then they're going to be able to develop even more units, and I have to find a way to block those as well. I think that the correct play is sort of up to your interpretation. It's probably Warning Shot. The Warning Shot Rex line is probably better because you really need Hecarim to die. It's very important, and increasing Hecarim death chances is rather relevant. And if they have a second Hecarim, you're not winning the game anyway, right? Because they're going to develop the Hecarim this turn, right? They're just going to pass when you do this, and then they develop second Hecarim and you lose, right? And so second Hecarim, we're not allowed to say that they've got. And if their hand is something like Harrowing, because we're trying to kill Hecarim here, we're not really going to be able to kill Hecarim through second harrowing anyway. So like these hand states where they've got Hecarim or harrowing are hand states I'm not allowed to play around. So the hand states I'm allowed to play around are things where there's a bunch of like X1s and X2s, and I need to be able to use Pokey plus Tidal plus this and plus this as a blocker to kill those, right? Which means that the right play right now is probably Warning Shot plus Rex, because that's the only way I'm able to win hand states that I'm able to actually beat, right? So I'm playing to my outs, basically. Instead, I do Pokey Stick because I feel as if that I'm going to be doing Condense Warning Shot, which is silly, but all that I've explained to you right now is something that I would have had to come up with on this action, and that's just not something that I'm able to do at the moment with the deck in a matchup I've never played. I think about it, but I do Pokey Stick. They develop a Mistwraith, which really lessens the odds that I'll kill Hecarim. Hecarim does not get targeted except only once. You know, you can see what dies, and I actually kill a fair few things, to be honest. But at the end of the day, they had Hecarim. So what am I going to do? Warning, I attack with Rex, hoping they'll misplay, but that's game, right? We don't have to believe at the point. They win. That's the end of the game too. That was brutal, right? If we think about just what the hell just happened. I had no fearsome blockers for like the entire fucking majority of the game. They played Skitterer. I had to use Wallop to prevent myself from taking a mathematical bajillion damage, and I lost despite having Rex and Condense. It was going to be really hard to win now. On the other hand, I didn't draw Gangplank. Gangplank would have been able to apply a lot of pressure, and a 2-power like Gangplank spell, because of the keg, would wipe out their board typically. And I didn't draw Cannon, and Cannon's Lightning Rush seems really good, right? One of the best hits of Conchologist in this matchup would have been Lightning Rush. It kills a fearsome and lets us get our Conchologist back to find more things, and we just didn't find it in this matchup. Well, we found one Conchologist, but it didn't give us great hits. But after this, I felt like, uh-oh, I cannot win, right? I got the Poro King through somehow, despite having no fearsome blockers throughout the entire game except Poro Sled. Like, Poro Sled was my only fearsome blocker that wasn't buffed up by Sky Splitter in that matchup. So I felt like I was really on the back foot and I wasn't able to win. But we'll go over the final game now. And I think this is our mulligan. I do keep Pokey Stick in the end as a way to deal with Teemo, as well as Acorn, as well as Stygian, as well as Phantom Butler. I don't really want Condense. It's a late game card, not an early game card. And I don't really want Warning Shot because I really wanted to find things like Conchologist or Drop the Bomb or whatever. Mariah Warden I do end up keeping because I have the attack token on 2, so I thought one of the best ways I can try and win is sort of pressure them down. Also, Mariah Warden can summon some stuff that's just strong, right? Sometimes it just wins you the game because Mariah Warden summons something good. And if Mariah Warden summons something bad, to be honest, most hits are going to be not great hits because 1/1s aren't going to do much into a fearsome stack anyway. So like the difference between a 0/1 and a 1/1 isn't that high. So I kept Pokey, I kept Mariah Warden, and we end up drawing what is a really, really good hand. Like, Butcher blocks fearsome. Cannon, they cannot block favorably and keeps attacking it every turn. Conchologist is the best card. In fact, my early turns are really complicated because, like, what do you do with this hand? Are we trying to set up a Butcher? How do we set up a Butcher best? Are we trying to go wide? How do we do that best? They have Teemo on 1, despite the fact that I'm a deck with Parlay and Pytos, which is a little bit sad, but whatever. They attack in. We do this. I top deck Parlay, which is really nice. And I spent a long time thinking here, right? If I develop Concho, I am able to possibly fly in like Cloud Stance or Pokey Stick or something or Pytos and be able to deal with a fearsome attacker. If I play Mariah Warden, I'm able to put in a lot of damage, and I could also just open to try and develop this unit, and playing this unit is mutually exclusive to playing this unit and this unit, right? I end up going Mariah Warden for trying to be a little bit aggressive, and the fact that I can answer Teemo anyway with the Pokey Stick next turn, and I can probably tank a little bit of early fearsome damage, considering if they play something like the 3/2 or even 2 of them over the next 2 turns, my next turn looks really great with 4 attackers, maybe 5, right? That's why I play Mariah Warden here. We end up getting Ascended Poro. I still attack with Destined Poro because if they block with this, it's a great Pokey Stick target. Like, I'm really happy, or even a Parlay target. So I end up attacking with the 1/1. They block with Teemo, which seems a little bit weird to me. They block this into this. I think they're just annoyed that this has mark, like the cannon mark on it, and they want to like not die. But I don't know. This felt like a really good way for you to deal damage. Maybe they're playing around my pings. They know that Teemo won't be much around for this world. Maybe they're just getting as much value as they can out of the little guy. But yeah, they block. Sorry, this way. They play Mistwraith, I play Concho. We've got 3 interesting options here. Okay, we've got 2 interesting options here. Tidal Invocation plus Pytos lets us kill a 2 health Fearsome, which they've got a couple of, which is quite nice. But I end up taking Face Sprout, and you might ask why. If in the Face Sprout pool there is a lifesteal unit, and I really wanted it, and the fact that it gives it +1/+1 means a lot of the 2 strength phase, such as Junk Construct, are able to block Fearsome. So I thought this would be a great way of being able to high roll for trying to find an elusive unit, or create a Fearsome blocker in a deck that doesn't have any Fearsome blockers. While this is okay, this needs to be combined with something, and it only creates a 1/1, which isn't fantastic for me. The 1/1 obviously combines with an Ivnaka Boros to create a 3/3, but I don't have Ivnaka Boros in hand, so I'm not going to play around that. They play Stygian, which is the perfect parley target. I'm not setting up a Jagged Butcher, but I'll probably be able to set up a Jagged Butcher next turn with how my attack lines up or by playing Pokestick. Parley prevents 4 damage and lets me get an off-turn Plunder proc. So this was really good for me. I was really happy that I was able to play Parley here. Okay, they attack me. I draw Kennen, which is really nice. Like, I cannot put into words how amazing Kennen's Lightning Rush is. I get to get back a Conchologist and kill 3 strength, and they can't interact with it because they're not on Vile Feast or Mark of the Isles, right? Like, if they're on Mark of the Isles against Kennen's Lightning Rush, this goes from the best card in my deck to the worst card in my deck. But they're not on Mark of the Isles, so I'm feeling very fine. I play Concho and see if I can see what's in the Concho pool, but I end up picking it extremely quickly. Yeah, these are my Concho options. These aren't bad. Right, Formless Blade is the same thing as a Pytos because it sets up something up for dying, right? Formless Blade does a very, very, very good thing for me. It also, like, gets to threaten bigger units by dealing 2, right? Something like the Wraithcaller is easier to die. More Powder is the exact same sentence as Formless Blade, except it costs 2 mana. So it's not great, but if you end up finding something like Electro Harpoon or Divine Draft or something like that, or even need it for burn, More Powder does the exact same thing as Flows. Basically, More Powder is Formless Blade, except if you deal damage multiple times or have burn, right? But Ye Been Warned combines with Kennen and lets you strike this and draw 1. And I'm going to remind you, LGames' deck has no interaction for this. So Ye Been Warned was something I was very, very happy to see. We end up obviously taking it. They play Doom Beast after doing a Fading Memories. We play Ye Been Warned. I decide to pull this unit. I think at the end of the day, this is probably a misplay. Like, they would need to play 2 Fearsome units for there to be 2 4/2s, and for me to possibly regret pulling this way, which is possible, right? They've got a Mistwraith here. They need to find another exactly 2 mana Mistwraith or Risen Mists. But if they do it by next turn, I've not only got a Fearsome Defender, or this is trading in, which is fine, right? Or I'm playing Lightning Rush, so I'm able to deal with these in time. But if they don't have a Fearsome friends, like if they don't have more Mistwraiths, then killing this is just better every time. Possibly. It's really hard for them not to be playing this unit next turn, unless they're doing Wraithcaller. And if they're doing Wraithcaller, it's the same thing as making these have 3 strength. So, look, I do think it's mostly a nothing burger which one I decide to attack, but I do think it may have technically have been positive to attack this, because I think this sets me up for them misplaying more. Even though if they play perfectly, I think it actually does not matter, because I answer all of these 3 cards that I'm seeing in front of me, or a possible 4/2 Mistwraith from a Risen Mist in the exact same fashion, right? I'm blocking and I'm Lightning Rushing, and I'm killing something. I guess, like, if they have 3 4/2s, right, then it is better to pull this. I mean, that's why I did it, right? I did it to prevent the 3 times 4/2, which was possible, because I've only got 1 answer, 2 answer, and then this would be my 3rd answer, like whatever I pull with the Ye Been Warned. But I don't know if that's worth playing around that line. Look, I think this is right to pull. And if I said the opposite of that a couple of minutes ago, I apologize. I'm tired out of my mind. But I just wanted to, like, explain that I think that's why I did this, because they did the Fading Memories like this. I think that's why I pulled it that way. Anyway, we do this. We attack in. I don't attack with this unit because I don't want them to get a positive trade with the Doom Beast, and I don't really care about the Nexus damage that much, and this being able to deal 1 damage in future felt really nice to me. I don't know. Play the 3/3. Have a blocker. They play a bunch of units. Keep in mind that... can I quickly see which cards they play? Okay, they played this one in the middle. Okay, they didn't play the first card. which I don't know if I noticed at the time, but I did notice that they had one card, and I was scared of this being harrowing for the rest of the game. They play 2 Stygians, which is honestly fine, right? We can block one of them. We can Lightning Rush. We have 2 Lightning Rushes now. We can Lightning Rush from Concho into one of these, and then we can Pokey Stick the 3rd one. Our hand is perfectly built to beat their hand right now. And as you can see, that's exactly what we do. Right? Yeah, right. This goes into here, this goes into here, and these block this way. We're taking 3 damage, but they've only got 1 card left. Now, the rest of the game becomes, can we beat Harrowing, right? Or can we win before they play Harrowing, right? That's the other way of viewing this question. Now, we do have Riptide Rex, which is quite nice, and we do have this unit, which could still get us the Healing Fae. And we also did just get a Conchologist back, so we can find a few things. Top decking this gives us another Fearsome blocker, potentially, depending on how the rolls go. It's not guaranteed. We don't find the Fearsome unit, but we do... Sorry, we don't find the Lifesteal unit, but we do find Junk Construct, which has 3 strength, because it's the buff from the card, right? That gives it +1/+1, so we end up taking Junk Construct. I play Castaway first, and I do get the option of Quick Attack, so I take it. The other one was Can't Block, and I think you can understand why I took Quick Attack, because it doesn't deal as much damage, but it lets us block Fearsome. They don't play their card, which makes me... I'm 100% certain that they've got Harrowing, and I don't really care what the other card is, right? The other card could be a unit, but, like, if it's a unit, I might just not attack, and then Harrowing is less good. Possibly. Depends on what the unit is. I full swing here. I forget that Risen Mists is one of their possibilities. This just does not occur in my brain. And I wish I had not attacked with the 3/3. I can attack with the 1/1. It doesn't matter if I attack with the 1. Well, it can if they've got Harrowing. But not in this instance. I'm pretty sure everything they played had Fearsome, or enough things had Fearsome for me not to need to have 2 non-Fearsome blockers, or even 3 non-Fearsome blockers. If I hadn't attacked with this, maybe I would have been able to beat a Harrowing more, and I don't need this extra 3 damage, right? So I think it's correct not to attack with this. I just wasn't considering Risen Mists as one of their cards to have in addition to Harrowing. So now, it's turn 7. Oh, hold on. Okay. They've got enough mana for Harrowing. If they do Harrowing, they're going to have, I don't know, 4 to 5 Fearsomes. We've got 1 Fearsome Defender. We've got 1 way of interacting with it. We've got this, which might be able to combine with this, but we're going to be taking a lot of damage, especially since they played at least 2 Miss Wraiths, if not 3. Well, they played 3, because I just did Risen Mists. And I was pretty scared. And in this moment, I thought, like, I was so incredibly tense, because I'm so close to winning with Rex and Warning Shot, and if I just didn't attack with the 3/3, I thought I had guaranteed lethal. Right, because I've got these units, right? If they have Harrowing, I'm fine. And they don't have Hecarim in this deck, so I'm not too worried about that. And then we see the best thing that they could possibly have, which is Risen Mist. And the fact that they have Risen Mist means I will never lose this game. It is impossible for me to lose. I can kill Risen Mist. I can kill whatever this card could possibly be will let me win. I get to play this. I get to open attack. I even get to put the weapon on this. I get to do Rex. I've won. And we don't really need to watch the rest of this game. They end up having Fading Memories, we play Concho, we get Purple Berry. There was a few other options, but at this point we had a safe win. And so I just played around and got the win. Yeah. And that was game. This was a really, really, really tight set. I remember being very scared throughout lots of it. I did not expect to get anywhere close to winning. I think the lines were a little bit tight in a lot of instances. I think the mulligans really paid off, right? If we go back to like this mulligan, right? Like all this matchup was finding enough fearsome blockers and then finding a way to win. Now we drew 3 Sky Splitters, which was very nice. I mean, we're really lucky that we've found 3 Sky Splitters. But we sort of needed to keep this. If we didn't keep this and just drew another Poro, we'd lose. Because we wouldn't have blocked that early on where we used 2 Poros and 2 Sky Splitters and a Poros next to stay alive, right? We wouldn't be able to do that, which meant we would have taken 9 damage from that unit over the course of the entire game. Getting Ice Shard, that tech in from Hash, was really, really important. Being able to get the Poro Sled, which is a card we were even getting close to cutting at one point, or at least I was suggesting cutting it. Having that as one of our few blockers and playing around it to try and get the guaranteed lethal with the 1 impact and the 2 things, and trying to math out this lethal in this moment was this felt like an eternity, just thinking about exactly how I was going to be able to win this. And I really felt smart with the play I ended up making, even if, I mean, I think I took the right play. I think we went through it and talked, and I think I made the right play. And we get into game 2, and there was a lot of interesting and difficult decisions regarding what to do with our units, right, and what to do with this card, which, at the end of the day, I just think I didn't understand what I was doing with Bandol Tailstones, and if I had known, maybe I would have done slightly better. Or at least recognize what the actual value of these draw cards was, and realizing that I'm not going to play both of them without losing the game already, right? I thought I would be able to play both of them by the time I would win the game. That was just never going to be the case. I think I had to admit that to myself. Okay. And then game 3, I mean, there was a little bit about the Rex in game 2, but then game 3, I mean, we drew really well by having Kennen and Mirai Warden and 2 Contrologists and the Lightning Rushes, right? Lightning Rush was huge, but I think we also played really well regarding our blocking and our attacking and, you know, all that sort of stuff. We may have drawn better, and that might have been why, but I'm going to go back to what I said during the prep section. If this wasn't Teemo Senna and was instead like, I don't know, Teemo Hecarim or Teemo Kalista, right? Like, I think it would have been slightly better. Now, they obviously didn't draw Senna or Kalista, but I don't know. Imagine if I had to ban the Kalista deck and they had a Gnar deck instead, right, as opposed to Teemo, right? Now I would have done, I think, a little bit better than Teemo did in this matchup. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe Teemo would have traded into Mirai Warden and that would have actually saved a lot more than it did, but I don't really think they're scared of getting chipped down. They're scared of sort of just losing board presence and not winning the game afterwards, right? So, I don't know. That was it. I apologize for it being a little bit scuffed. I had an exam this morning that I hadn't studied enough for, so I had to stay up last night studying quite a bit for it. But I hope nonetheless you enjoy it, and I shall see you next week for the next CDS thing. Bye.